are back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Patio Politics with Howard Grant right here in the Capitol. You see the scenery in the back of me. You know that we're under my favorite spot right here. I want to give a shout out to Wesley Methodist Church and their opportunity to give me their MCCA for being able to sit here and really be able to have good, wholesome conversation about national growth and development. I'm really, really grateful for that. I thank you so very kindly for the opportunity to do that. You know, it's another day. Another time, another opportunity. We are a few steps away. We always shoot on Sundays. We're a few steps away from the next general election in this country. And I'm excited to be able to chop down these things and really talk about it and beat back this conversation that you believe that it's going to be a wave. I don't believe that. But we can dive deeper into that. Let's take this quick commercial break, and I'm going to introduce you to some of my very good friends after this.
At Bahamas Bus and Truck Company Limited, we provide vehicles known for quality and durability. From the iconic Jeep Wrangler to the award-winning Grand Cherokee, we've got your everyday driver covered. For larger tasks, our Ram 1500, Mitsubishi Fuso Canter trucks, CMC Verica vans, and Fuso Rosa jitneys do way more than just deliver. We even carry a wide variety of pre-owned vehicles. To keep you going, our parts, service department, and body shop can accommodate our brands and others. Call us today at 322-1722 or email info@bahamasbus.com.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. Patio Politics with Howard Grant right here on an absolutely beautiful, lazy Sunday with a very proactive, I'm hoping that it's a very productive and provocative conversation, a conversation that we need right now. And the thick of everything that's happening yesterday was a motorcade that blew my mind. I saw hardly no mask. Talk to me. I can't even get no amen. I saw no mask. I saw persons piling up on each other. September 17th is coming. I told y'all, Princess Margaret Hospital can't take none of y'all. I just want to put that out there in your spirit. Today we're talking more and more of what you want to hear. We're going to be talking about politics in the richest of forms. I have my very good friends with me. We got Dr. Chris Curry, all the way from University of the Bahamas. He's always sitting here with me, really being able to dive into the conversation. And my long lost brother. Talk to me. My long lost brother, I haven't seen him in forever. Juan McCartney, you know exactly who he is. Popular radio show, The Revolution with Juan McCartney. He does a great deal of things. I'm so happy that he's sitting with me today. Gentlemen, thank you so very kindly. Introduce yourself to the listening audience who doesn't know you.
So I'm Dr. Christopher Curry. I'm Associate Professor of History at the University of the Bahamas, and I'm so excited to be part of the conversation today.
Juan McCartney. I'm Senior Editor at the Nassau Guardian. Like you say, I have a talk show called The Revolution. So I talk politics every single day, just about. So
Do you talk
great to be
politics
doing it on Sunday, too.
home? They do that on Sunday. I know Patio, you want to hear that?
No, I try to stay away. My son tries to talk to us about
Really?
politics. Yeah, he hears so much of it that he thinks,
Listen, I
My
think
children have picked sides, too.
Really?
Based purely on colors.
That's it.
Right, yeah. The color that they like. That they know no policy.
Well, let's hope
nothing.
that you're not making a decision along those lines also. He has very young kids. So I'm hoping that you're matured enough to understand that this has to push past a lot of things. And just to be able to piggyback off what you're saying, Juan, the truth is that I believe our country is maturing to the fact that everyone wants to be involved from some perspective about politics. And I think we have the responsibility for being able to really chop these things down and present it to the Bahamian people in this kind of bite-sized morsels that they can ingest. A lot of times it's about this fanfare, this kind of an idea that it's about branding, but it's really about the message of who do you see yourself moving behind, who you see really being able to lead this country come day one, September 17th, 2021.
Yeah, I would say even more than that, it's about leadership. Because what you have is, in Brave Davis, someone who's been in the political game for a while, but he doesn't have the experience of actually being a leader. He's been deputy leader. He's waited a long time. But people are saying, well, but what is his track record as leader? He doesn't have one. But then on the other hand, you have Hubert Minnis, who's campaigning both on his record and the future that he claims that he can deliver. He has some experience, certainly more than Brave does. And so he's campaigning on his leadership, being able to somehow master the crisis of COVID-19 and, of course, Dorian, and being able to, like a good ship captain, somehow navigate through the treacherous shoals of the last couple of years.
Are
course,
we convinced? Are we convinced that he's capable of doing this? Are we convinced by everything that we've seen in his track in the past, everything that we've seen, we would have known of him, whether you take into account what has happened in the Ministry of Works, whether you take into account what has happened with Bamsey, whether you take into account all these kind of sip that happens socially, are we convinced wholeheartedly as a society that Brave Davis could take us to this proverbial future, this new day that they continue to be able to talk to me about it?
Well, I'm not sure, you know, because I'll say this. This is the first election that I've covered in the last numerous election cycles that I truly think a lot of people are actually undecided still at this point. Like, they're not sure. And that speaks to not only Dr. Minnis's leadership, but it also speaks to people's faith in Brave's capacity to lead, that they would still at this point be undecided. Like, at this point now, or September 4th, we should be able to say, we see the plans, we see the policies, we like this person, we like that person, but every day I go around and people are asking me, like, what should I vote for? What should I be looking for? What's the
They're
criteria?
still asking you that?
Still asking me.
I'm serious. People are really asking questions. Like, I get calls from Grand Bahama. Howard, man, why you ain't voting? Why you ain't running with the DNA? Sir, ma'am, you need to stop it right now. Right? Because this was something that we did in 2012. I've already said that this election is going to really be, because let's break it down. Let's break it down. Whether you believe it or not, there's a great deal of you that are unemployed. I mean, can we do that? Can we say this? Whether you remember or not, there is a great deal of persons that are unemployed. And while you're feeling the fact that campaign funds are flowing and you can be able to do something on a day-to-day basis, you got something to taste, you probably got something to take back home, September 17th is coming. And I just didn't want to be a candidate with the responsibility of trying to be able to find something for someone in this kind of a time. The snap election might be a godsend for a lot of these persons because they don't have to have that long-term finance to come into constituency and do those things. I'm just not prepared for those things. But my question is this: do you believe that after everything that we've seen, that it'll come down to the economy? It'll come down to, if I have a job, this is who I'm voting for. Do I believe in Minnis? Do I believe in these things? Perry Christie just recently said, and speaking about Dr. Minnis, that he's not going to be able to do it unless he could find 80,000 jobs. Inadvertently, my question is, does Brave Davis know what 80,000 jobs is?
So it's a powerful point. I've looked at Intel City and some other polling, right? And what it's shown me is, number one, that unemployment and the economy are inextricably tied together as the number one issues facing us in this election cycle. Secondly, we're noticing that there are certain areas in the Bahamas that have been hurt more than others. Certainly Grand Bahama and Abaco, where unemployment is well above the national average. The national average of unemployment is well over 20%, but in Grand Bahama and Abaco, that figure is much, much higher. And then when you add to that, the cohort or the group age bracket that has the highest unemployment rate is college-age students, your 20-somethings. You know, people who are coming out of college looking for a job, can't find a job, there's no work available, and people don't want to hire them because they don't have the experience. So that is interesting because those are the same people who are going to possibly be a part of that big group of undecided voters that are going to possibly sway the election one way or another.
But there's no one pandering to them.
The most disenfranchised, the most burdened by the current economic malaise that this country is in.
Yeah, but there's no political organization I've seen that's been able to take a hard line and speak specifically to this demographic. Whether that be, there's a lot of persons now that's saying that they've been disenfranchised by the FNM as a result of this snap election. They hadn't had an opportunity to transfer their votes. They hadn't had an opportunity to register. They hadn't had these things. And there's a lot of this chatter that says that the FNM strategically has done this simply to be able to get themselves an upper hand when they get to the polls. Who knows? I don't know. But I'm still not seeing the PLP take on a strong line to be able to identify and bring those persons in, open their arms and say, hey, listen, you've been disenfranchised. We are the party for you. They're still taking the hard line for the grassroots. They're still talking from an economic standpoint, which they just recently shifted. They're still doing these particular traditional things. There's nothing inclusive that actually brings in this new demographic and speaks to a new day. Talk to me about it.
Well, I'll say this. Both political parties are detached from reality and selling something that's not the reality on the ground, and it's not going to be the reality on the ground. The fact of the matter is, austerity is coming. The government's not going to have a bunch of money to employ people. I see the Progressive Liberal Party saying that they're going to do a first jobs program for those 16 to 25. Government's going to help subsidize it, etc. We're not going to have money for that. All right, we're not going to have money for all these extra programs. We can barely pay police officers and teachers, and nobody's speaking to it. Nobody's helping us to understand like that there are going to be some rocky times ahead. They're acting as if on the flip side of this election, there's some big hope and bonanza. We have many, many challenges in this country, and it's going to be a very difficult road to fix it, and it's going to cost us a lot of money.
Yeah, but the PLP is talking more specifically, and this is what I bring my good friend Michael Halkitis on. I wanted to know their economic plan and the genesis of their approach in terms of what they wanted to market and push out to the people was through the economy. And I always say, I don't believe that anyone could beat the PLP talking about what they're going to do for poor people in this country. I feel as though they know exactly with the pulse of the poor person, the proverbial grassroots persons, and they know how to be able to pander to them. So they crafted this message, this plan, this idea that says that we're going to move this through the economy, right? And we're going to cut VAT by 2%. We're going to do that for 12 months. And then we're going to have the private sector go from minimum wage of $210 to $250 a week. Yeah, that's going to start with the private sector at these particular times. And my only question that I have for Halkitis, that I have for any one of those persons in the financial sector when I sit with them, how? Where in the world are we getting this money from? We're going to get the money from. So the only question I have is that, is there something that lurks behind that 12th month that we're going to be able to kind of push through it, and eventually on the 13th month, on the last day, being able to possibly see an increase in taxes, see another form? What do you believe is going to happen in the event that the PLP actually retains this government?
I think they're banking on hope, which is always a difficult thing to bank on because it's not tangible, right? It's a nebulous idea. The idea is they're hoping that reducing VAT to 10% will be like priming the pump, to use FDR's concept, as you have to give to people and invest in people in order to get the economy up and running again so people can start spending money again. The problem is there's nothing circulating, there's no jobs available, and the economy has been stagnant actually for about 2 decades. And so we're banking on hope, and we're not certain that there will be jobs created after September 16th, and we're not certain that people are going to actually have the money to spend, even with the reduction of the tax to 10%. Perhaps what they're hoping for, again, this is just a projection on my part, that after the 1-year test run of reducing the VAT, maybe they'll come back with a more serious idea about sort of a variegated income tax.
So are you saying that this is not a serious enough idea?
Well, no, I'm just saying that if it doesn't work, at least they're saying it's only going to be for a 1-year period, and then they might come back and decide to do some serious
Chris, we can't take with 1 year.
tax reform, right?
We can't take 1 year. We can't take 1 year of this idea of hope. It needs to be something calculated. It needs to be this kind of a relationship that they have, both local and international, that can be able to assure the Bahamian people that whilst the world goes through this kind of a pandemic and the economic crunch that they're going through, we have a course, we have a path to take care of 370 to 400,000 people. This is what the PLP is going to do. This is why you should vote for us. Talk to me about it.
Well, I understand what you're saying, right? And that's all lovely. And, you know, it sounds good and everything's going to be fine. But again, I circle back to reality, right? So in terms of cutting the VAT, that's fine. Mm-hmm. Maybe it'll spur spending in the economy, but that's not a realistic strategy to grow the economy. That really deals more with government revenue than anything else. So here's what's going to happen. Between now and next June, I want to say between now and January, but I'll give it till June, they're going to implement a international business tax in the Bahamas, in line with what the G7 said. G7 recommended as high as 15%. So that's going to have some impact on government revenue as well, but it also may have some impact on business. You may see some businesses trying to domicile where they're not resistant to that, like Cayman, Bermuda possibly. So we're going to lower the VAT. We're going to have the income tax if the PLP wins, right? But that still is not going to change the government's capacity to generate movement in the economy. What you're going to have to do is you're going to have to seek out investment internationally, locally, hinder these impediments to investment. I know people come to me all the time and say, I'm trying to work with the government. I can't work with the government because they're affiliated with this party or that party or from this country or that country. We got to kill all that and drive investment.
The government actually been very forward and being able to talk about PPPs. They've actually looked for a lot of persons locally and internationally to be able to forge relationships with to make some things happen. Do you believe that this is something that should happen despite who wins going forward?
PPPs sound good, but the problem is they haven't been really tested on a large scale. I was listening intently because I'm really interested in the orange economy, and there was a PPP that was supposed to be negotiated between the AMMC and a group of private citizens involved, right? But that has never come to fruition. And the PLP looks like, or even the FNM may not go back to that, and they may decide to go back to the original Antiquities Act, where basically everything is state-run. Let me just say, though, the other idea that I think we need to look at is FDI, foreign direct investment. Because, you know, for years, foreign direct investment has always propped up tourism and our financial sector. But the problem is FDI is always directed towards mega resorts and hotels that do not benefit Bahamians. So if we're going to do something after September 16th, FDIs need to be directed towards Bahamian entrepreneurs, Bahamian businesses, rather than investing in a hotel chain that only benefits the FDI and really is an extractive model of economic development where everything comes out of the Bahamas rather than staying in it.
This is heavy stuff, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to take this quick commercial break and be right back after this.
The Ministry of Disaster Preparedness Management and Reconstruction would like to remind you that the Atlantic hurricane season is from June 1st to November 30th. Please be informed, be prepared, and be safe. Let us work together to build a more disaster-resilient Bahamas. For more information about hurricane preparedness, please visit NEMA's website and social media. This message has been brought to you by the Ministry of Disaster Preparedness Management and Reconstruction, NEMA, and the DRA.
Patio politics. Patio politics.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Patio Politics with Howard Grant right here under a beautiful tree on a nice lazy Sunday afternoon, having real conversations to really push the envelope, to open your mind to the perspective, to the concept and idea that leadership matters. A lot of us are kind of bathed in this idea of the campaign, the mottos, the symbols, the colors, all these superficial things. We got to dive a little deeper. And diving deeper, I wanted to be able to bring my good friends on. We got Dr. Chris Curry all the way from University of the Bahamas, and we also have Juan McCartney all the way from Guardian. And I'm extremely excited to talk about these things because we touched on some things at the very top of the show. Go back and check it out. We were talking about the economic model. We're talking about these particular things. It's very good to do those things. But now I want to kind of get to the meat and potatoes of this. All right, this is the exciting thing for me. Let's get to the meat and potatoes. Let's talk numbers. Let's talk about how do we see this election going come September 16th? Which way do we see it go? Now I'm going to throw this out there at the forefront. This is not a prediction. This is how I feel based upon the numbers. I believe that this election will be extremely tight. I believe that no matter which way it goes, to the left, for the PLP, to the right for the FNM, to the right for the FNM, to the right for the PLP, the right, it doesn't matter. I believe that it's going to go 22-17. I'm convinced about that. They're wanting to laugh at me, right? Obviously, he's riding the wave with Brave. No, I just right, right. But the truth is that I believe it's going to be tight. I believe it's going to be a tight election, and I believe that this election is not going to be won with the gimmicks and this kind of the accoutrements and the superficiality of marketing. For campaigns. It's going to be won by the character and substance and the kind of work ethic of each one of the constituents, the candidates in each one of the constituencies. I believe that. I watched St. Barnabas with great intent. Talk to me. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts about that?
Halkitas versus Cartwright. I think this is going to be one of the closest contested constituency fights that we're going to see. I think it's going to go down to the wire. Here you have it, in a way, a displaced candidate coming in, Halkitas from Golden Isles, versus an incumbent who a lot of people see on the ground as one of the best and brightest of the young FNMers coming up, who has really done a lot of work in parks. And although he's been a backbencher, people see him as someone who's relatable, who's on the ground, who's a real gentleman. There has been some
conversation
all of that.
More than once that says that, there's going to be a cabinet shuffle. Shannon Don is going to get in there. We heard it before. We heard those particular things. That is the kind of work that he's been doing in St. Barnabas.
Yeah. A lot of people like him on both sides of the political legacy divide. I think he's likable, he's relatable, he's hardworking, and he hasn't done anything to suggest that he's corrupt or he's involved in any level of corruption in the government. I think him being a backbencher is actually an asset for him.
Yeah, I believe so also. Juan, how do you see it?
In St. Barnabas, that's going to be difficult. Both guys are really nice guys. You know, people really have a great affinity for Shannon Don and Alcides. Once you meet him, you feel like you know him a long time. Very personable, gentlemanly fellow. But the fact of the matter is that constituency is carved out of traditionally PLP strongholds.
It was carved out initially for Cheryl Bazard. Cheryl Bazard did not win the constituency. Blew my mind.
What you saw was Baintown as well, and St. Barnabas. What you saw was a lot of people who traditionally would vote PLP reject Christie and go for the F&M. So the calculation you have to make now is, do those people who weren't necessarily voting for Shannon Don because he's a nice guy, but because they were rejecting the PLP, do they stick with Shannon Don because of the work he's done and that they like him, or are they going to turn on Minnis? These are the critical questions, I believe. So it's really up to Shannon Don and people's affinity for him, and if they feel like they want to stick with him, because their natural inclination to me is to vote PLP.
I'll just add, that's a solid point you're making. I would just say that there used to be an old St. Barnabas constituency, but it was more like what Fort Charlotte and Mount Moriah is, and that was often the Labour seat that Randall Fox actually won a number of times. So the current manifestation of St. Barnabas is actually that Black Belt area, that Engliston, Bain and Grandstand that was traditional PLP. So it'll be interesting that it's a different kind of St. Barnabas. You have an incumbent, I believe, is very popular, but he's also attached to a party where people may be anti-Minnis and want to vote PLP.
Yeah, but is there this kind of a general sentiment that says that we're going with Brave, this is what we want to do? There's still this sort of reluctance, despite the fact that we're not necessarily having these kind of conversations, especially not now on traditional media, simply because this is campaign time, these persons pay for their slots. Yeah, what do you do, right? But the truth is that on these shows, there still is not this sentiment. When you go in your barbershop, when you go in your hair salon, despite the fact that these persons are wearing yellow, they're enthusiastic about these things. They're just there. Well, Chad, I really don't know if I want. This is what I'm hearing. I don't know if you're hearing those things, but despite this kind of enthusiasm, this wave with Brave and all these things, there is not this hard and fast thing that Brave is going to be the next prime minister of the country. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think we have to look at 2017. A lot of people didn't necessarily support the F&M, but they didn't like Christie. So their vote was actually to get Christie out rather than to get the F&M in. And so I'm thinking they're going to be a scenario that we're going to see like that played out possibly in this election, where people aren't necessarily sold on Brave, but at the same time, they really don't like Minnis.
Well, the problem too, and you know why you hear wave? It's because it doesn't really take.
Does it rhyme with
overwhelming? Brave? Probably. It doesn't take an overwhelming really share of the electorate to cause a wave. So if you look at the PLP and its current makeup in the House of Assembly, it's 4 seats, right? But the PLP got 35% of the vote. The F&M got 65% of the vote, got 90% of the seats. If you look at 2002, and this is the lowest minority the PLP has ever had in the session that just ended. If you look at 2002, where the F&M was swept out of office, they had 7 seats, but they still got 45% of the votes. So in our first past the post system, it's easy to cause a wave of seats without an overwhelming majority of support that reflects the number of seats you got.
Will the independents be a factor in this election? Will the coalition of independents, will the United Coalition Party, will the independents be a factor in this general election? Or are they, has-beens of sort? Socially, where persons have said, well, we tried it before with the DNA, it didn't work. We tried it again with the DNA, it didn't work. Hey, listen, we're going with one or two of the 2 major parties. Do you believe that we're in this kind of position, or people are still moving in that direction?
Well, I want to just touch on that by referring back to 2002. In 2002, that was the last time we actually had 4 independents in 2002 gain a spot in the House of Assembly. You had Tennyson Wells, Bamboo, you had Pierre Dupuy Shirley, you had Whitney Bastion in South Andros, and then you had Cartwright in Long Island.
It's heavy what you're saying. It's heavy what you're saying. Because historically, by the name alone, that you know these persons are financially capable, articulate, and strong in their leadership capacities. This is not what we're seeing from the independents nowadays.
Well, this is what I was trying to say,
Okay, go ahead.
Howard, is this. In 2002, the reason why those four were able to win was because you didn't have those seats contested by either FNM or the PLP. So what I'm trying to say is for independents to win, largely and historically speaking, there has to be an alignment of the stars, and there has to be a bump where one or two of the legacy parties decide they're not going to contest that seat. We don't have that situation at all in this election. My feeling is that the independents and the third-party contestants will make a dent into the outcome of the election, but they may not actually win a seat.
Yeah, I'm with Dr. Curry on this. I think that there's nothing historically that I can see that suggests to me that they're going to win any seats based on exactly what he said. They're all contested. They're all driving to win those seats. They are woefully underfunded compared to the PLP and FNM, and you may not like it, but in our system, money is what you need in order to run a sensible
matters.
election campaign.
Money
So they
matters.
don't have the funds, they don't have the personnel, they don't have the machinery, they don't have the people on the ground to drive out votes. I don't see it.
In
I could be
2011,
wrong, but I don't see it.
in 2011, Juan McCartney and the DNA, which I was a part of, was able to capture 13% of the votes, which actually, and I like to say, I really do say that Branville was successful in this election, because his objective, whilst definitely was winning, I think his core objective was to get rid of Hubert Ingram at the time. So, in my view, that was a win for him. That 13% played a significant factor in being able to pull away from FNM votes. You don't see this happening at all with the independents, being able to pull away from at least the FNM votes, because these are the liberal persons, these are the freedom fighters, deep within themselves. These are the persons who want to be able to see, a better country, when we make these kind of decisions. They moved away from the PLP, they found themselves in the FNM. They moved away from the FNM, found themselves in the DNA. They're still looking for something else. Don't you believe that, or do you believe that they're going to be able to vote for the coalition parties?
In the absence of a campaign finance legislation where we have a transparent way
It's
of
heavy what you say.
accounting for where money
Heavy.
comes from, it is difficult for a third party to compete on the same level with the two legacy parties.
It's impossible.
And let me just say, you saw that played out just the other day in North Andros and Bimini, right? Berry, pardon me. What happens there? You have an individual COI candidate who has to pull out because he cannot see him winning the seat. He's barely able to get himself nominated, and then he realizes he's got to take
You're
care of
talking
his
about Wellington.
family. Yes, he's got the comedian. He's got to take care of his family. He's got 10 to 15,000 he needs in order to just run up to September 16th, and he realizes there's no way, for him to even win the election. So what I'm trying to show you is third parties are always at a disadvantage because they don't have the financing that the bigger parties have, and the bigger parties are at an advantage because no one checks. And there is no system in place for us to figure out where the money's coming
Marco
from.
Pine is kicking some hip in Grand Bahama. I got a call from Grand Bahama most recently that says that Marco Pine is Ginger Moxie and Marco Pine. That's the two persons that they're looking for in Pine Ridge in Grand Bahama. Do you believe that his sort of his reign in the media and always being at the forefront of the conversation has given him that kind of an extra push that needs to be able to possibly be able to win a seat?
Possibly, but, it's not likely. Let's look at Long Island. Long Island, traditionally FNM seat. Loretta Butler Turner, immensely popular in
Absolutely.
Long Island. Goes
Absolutely.
on there. Huge fallout with the FNM. Still only collects 250 votes. So even though you're popular, people traditionally, they want to go with the party that they know. And a lot of people feel with independent candidates too, and it's no disrespect to any independent candidates. I think there are a lot of good people who are running as independent candidates. A lot of people feel as independent candidates as well is, why am I going to put my vote towards someone who won't be able to form the government, who won't be able to mount a serious opposition, who won't be able to perhaps help me in my constituency?
But to that argument, Juan, there's a great deal of support that you had for the major organizations that your candidate, your member of parliament, was not performing for the past 4.5 some years. So much so that we didn't see Chanel Ferguson, so much so that we didn't see Mark Humes, so much so that the FNM has decided to separate themselves from these particular persons and identify other persons. So, I mean, does it really hold water? Are you looking for representation locally within your constituency to see growth growth and development thereof? Or do you want to be able to say, that's my man, I voted for this particular party? What's the thinking associated with it?
I don't know. Until we have local government on New Providence, which is something that we were supposed to have but didn't get in this term from the FNM, until we have local government on New Providence, it's going to be very difficult to separate the two. So I can think all I want. Yeah, I got a good MP. The first question you're asking yourself is, does he have any money? Can he do something for me? Can he take care of me? Because if he's not attached to a major political party or government,
not your MAN. Talk to me.
It's not going to work, you know? And so people are looking, as well as local representation, they're looking at the bigger picture because they can't get things done locally by themselves.
Yeah, the sad part about it is our political system as it is, the Westminster model, is that you like to think that you're voting for your MP, but realistically you're really voting for the leader of the party indirectly. Obviously when you go to the voting booth and you vote, it's for the actual candidate in the constituency. But because the executive is so much tied to the legislative system, because the executive has control over the cabinet, because the executive appoints and makes suggestions to not only the Senate, but also as it relates to the judiciary, he has so much power glued to him in that position that we are actually indirectly voting for who we want as the leader of the country.
Correct.
And we don't. Yeah, and so the point is, until we change our system, whether it be Republican or not, we are definitely in a system where we have indirect elections, where we are indirectly electing who's going to be the next leader of the country. And so what it means is that actual backbencher, if you happen to be in a constituency where you have a backbencher who wins a seat but basically doesn't get a cabinet portfolio, you're basically going to have an MP who's going to have his hands tied behind his back. There's very little that he can do with the paltry amount of money that he gets,
especially with
a sitting MP. And so everything is about clientelism, right? And trying to provide for people by giving them handouts rather than looking at a systematic way that you can improve the country and your constituency when really you have your hands tied behind your back.
This is a very provocative conversation. I love it. I want to be able to get to a little bit more. You ain't giving me enough of what I need to hear. Grand Bahama.
You want numbers?
I want numbers, baby. I want numbers.
Oh, no.
I want you. What do you see in Grand Bahama?
Normally, I would tell you that
Okay, go ahead.
in any other election, I could tell you which way the wind was blowing, honestly. But in this one, it's up in the air.
One.
But
You need to stop it,
but
one.
the FNM's at a disadvantage.
One. You need to stop it because
hold on.
hindsight is always 2020.
Like
right?
last time I knew that.
come on, boy.
I said it
I don't
before the
profess to
election.
be, I don't profess to be clairvoyant,
There's
but
no
I will
way.
say this. I think, FNM was Louis Yard and Free PLP, then PL and FNM, right? I mean, that is where Cecil Wallace Whitfield, made his mark. But I will say this. I believe that PLP has a chance of winning 3 out of the 5. I see 3-2, and I do not see McAlpine winning.
In Grand Bahama.
Yeah.
I think I agree with you.
Yeah. I talk to the people in East End, and they tell me it's going well now, better now for Thompson. There's supposedly
Crazy.
some disgruntlement over Peter Turnquest's representation.
Yes.
And Thompson came in.
Traditionally
and they didn't want to talk to
FNMC.
him, but now they're talking to
Traditionally
traditionally
FNMC.
But
Yeah.
East Grand Bahama, McLeanstown, that area, you know what they're thinking about? Oban.
and Dorian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those two things.
Mhm.
And they're like, we've been left in the breeze to blow.
There is no school in East End to this day. And Chester Cooper was talking about it last night. They bus the children every day 50 miles to Freeport and 50 miles back.
I think it's the Maurice Moore.
You
I think
understand?
that's the closest one. They go to,
And
yeah.
so you may be FNM, but your calculations are going to take those things into account.
Eastern Grand Bahama, remember.
Hold on. Let's touch this now.
No man's
Let's
land.
touch
It's
this.
a war zone.
Let's touch this.
Yeah, exactly.
Traditionally, we are bathed in alcohol, and this kind. Let's talk about it. We're bathed in alcohol from these major political organizations to have you forget about. I'm telling you, these people jumping up and down. These are the same people 6 weeks ago that had no jobs. These are the same people that the government said that we're spending $1 million a week to feed. Now they've forgotten all those things, and if they keep this kind of enthusiasm up, this kind of an idea for this election fever, they will vote according to this kind of emotion rather than being able to look, like you say, Juan, at those numbers and taking real things into account when they step into that booth. Do you think that our people are really taking things into account, those registered voters, and walking into the booth, making a decision for the growth and development of the country, or are they wrapped up in the emotion of the moment right now?
Well, it depends. They may believe that the growth and development of the country hinges on getting a certain person out or getting a certain person in. So you don't know what their motivations are.
Grand Bahama has suffered since Francis and Jean in 2004.
2004. I keep telling people this.
Listen, I got married in Grand Bahama in 2003. I actually had my first night, my
You got
honeymoon
married in
night.
2003.
Yes, sir. And guess where I stayed? In the Royal Oasis honeymoon suite.
Me and you get married to see me.
Yes, sir. But I'm just saying that there was a Royal Oasis. Now there isn't. There is no International Bazaar. There's no Royal Oasis. There's no Princess.
It ain't an oasis
hold
no
on.
more. It's a mirage. Talk to me. See what I did there?
And let me just say, what do we have for an airport? The Bahamas bought the airport, but all they have is a rubble. The Bahamas government bought our Lucaya, but the building is condemned. So people in Grand Bahama say, what have you done for me lately, Janet Jackson?
Yeah, I'm with Dr. Curry. It's going to be a slog for the FNM over in Grand Bahama, I believe. So not that the PLP is talking anything.
Andres, let's go.
Sensible
Andres, we
about
can do
Grand
this
Bahama.
quick and then we can wrap up the last segment. Andres, I see the 2 seats going for the PLP. I see the FNM candidate actually pulled out. He was getting good support in South Andres, making some things happen. The Prime Minister was enthusiastic about being able to support him. Clay, he was my boy. I'm out there on the top in North, but I see the 2 seats going for. Now I could be wrong. This is only what we're hearing on the ground. I see the 2 seats going for the PLP. What say ye?
Well, if you look at optics, yesterday the Prime Minister was in Andros, and apparently there wasn't very large crowds at his gatherings, at his, what do you call it, drive-through motorcade / rally. Poor turnout, apparently. So I think you're right in saying that. I think Abaco's going yellow.
Yeah.
Sorry, Andros.
Let's
Andros
pull.
going yellow.
Let's go major.
Slippage.
Let's do some major things.
You might have been right about that too.
Right? You need to stop it, right? Let's go major. Let's come to Nassau, right? We run from Andros, so we're going from Grand Bahama, Andros. Let's go to Nassau. We got 23 seats in Nassau. When this initially started, I can be honest with you, I saw 6 seats for the FNM. When this initially started, when the Prime Minister actually, when the House of Assembly was dissolved and everything was kicked off, we did some assessments. Personally, I said there's 6 seats. Since then, I've seen some candidates working their butts off. I really believe that the FNM may be able to pull 10 seats. If they're able to pull 10 seats, it's a possibility that they can be able to take the government.
Yeah, I don't take bets on New Providence. The only thing I would say is secure is St. Anne's, and I'm going to go with Angliston for now, right? Other than that, the seats change. The seats have all
St.
changed.
Anne's.
St. Anne's has never
Andrew White for the Free
voted for
National
the
Movement.
PLP.
So Andrew White for the
Never.
FNM in St. Anne's. I think everybody has him in the corner already.
Listen,
He's straight.
Long Island
Get
has
your
voted for
suit
the
made,
PLP
you're
before,
done.
but St. Anne's has not.
Yeah. In the 1970s, Philip Smith represented Long Island for the PLP.
Yeah.
That's when James Knowles was also
Yeah.
FNM.
Even
But
South Andros went to the FNM. before.
Angliston, you say that our good girl, Glennis Hannah Martin,
she's never lost an election.
hold on. You still see it in this.
Angliston is
Quinton
PLP.
Buscemi is actually.
She's going to win.
She's going to win. Okay. So that's 2
She has
seats that we
everything
know.
going for her.
Kalani.
I always say there's 2 safe seats in New Providence. You already mentioned it. St. Anne's and Killarney for the FNM.
Yeah.
What I also want to say is, look at the island of New Providence. The periphery is usually dominated by the FNM.
Right.
It's the interior, the over the hill areas, the black
That
belt.
vote for the PLP.
Right, but you know, I don't know if you could even call anything a safe seat anymore after the
No.
last election with Centerville.
Yep,
All right,
exactly.
so I'm wondering. I do agree that Killarney and St. Anne's are likely FNM,
One
and I
more
believe
thing.
that PLP is Angliston.
I want to touch this
Yeah.
before we go.
I agree with Kalani because it's like he got 70% of the vote or something like that.
Ooh, Kalani.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to look at the demographics too.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to do this. That's while you're talking about demographics. I see that Freetown is a seat that's divided between. I like to say it, and this is no disrespect. I always say haves and have-nots. These persons are from the Camp Road area and then Blair State on the back. So we know that these represent 2 fractions of our society, right? And they're all in one constituency. We've seen that Wayne Monroe has taken his time and been committed to being able to sit with the woman named leader, right? Rodney Munker for the longest time. And I thought that it was pandering strictly and directly to his base demographic, his core group, which was that Camp Road. But the truth of the matter is that this is a 2-part constituency. there is a possibility that Diaghilev could still take this constituency. Because I like to question whether or not your campaign was astute enough to ensure that these persons were registered to vote, that they were capable, they were out there, they was doing so. You know, you don't want to come this far and still miss out because you don't have these persons that are enthusiastic behind you, not registered, not capable of being able to vote for you.
I think it's going to be very close.
It's going to be a close seat.
I see a couple of very close. Elizabeth is going to be very, very close.
Yeah, possibly.
And I also think Fox Hill may be very close as well. Though I give the
Elizabeth
upper hand
got
to Fred Mitchell.
a major endorsement recently with the former Prime Minister Hubert Ingram actually supporting Dwayne Sands, and we saw the pictures go viral and all these particular things. And a lot of persons, one of the captions says "Kingmaker," right? So that's a big thing in our society. When you see Papa show up, this is an idea that, you're going to win these particular things. A lot of persons attribute the success of the FNM in 2017 to the fact that Papa showed up on the stage. Now, if he's showing up for Dwayne Sands, that's a whole different conversation that I won't have one of these days. Well, let's talk about it.
We can
You
talk
think I
about
got
it
all
now.
the time in the world to talk about other things, right?
That's fine.
I think he's being groomed for something bigger.
Absolutely.
Now, but to see one, Dwayne is your boy. He's your boy, and you've been saying for years that you believe that he could always move towards leadership for the Free National Movement. So beyond your words, I am saying to you, I have seen Papa show up. We've always known that he was a mentor. We always know that Hubert Ingram was a mentor. The former Prime Minister was a mentor to Dr. Sands, and we always knew that he had that good proximity, especially when he was with Loretta Butler Turner, and in those particular capacities. But the truth of the matter is that now that we see this, the tangibility thereof, especially what he said last week, associated with that in the papers when he says, I have no feelings, I have nothing to say about this. Papa, come on, now, Papa.
No, it's telling.
Once
that
your
he wouldn't-
faculties are about you, we know
course.
you got something to say.
It's telling because the fact that he stomped so hard for the FNM during the last election, but you haven't seen him in anything.
And then he pulled back.
His
to do with the FNM,
silence
But he
is
except
shows
giving
up for
away
Dwayne Sands.
Right, he shows up for Dwayne Sands.
It's also, you have to look at it like this. Papa is upset with Minnis rejecting his advisory role after Dorian. Remember him and Christie said they would
Right.
help him, and Minnis, in somewhat of an arrogant fashion, said basically, I don't need your help. Thanks, but no thanks. Minnis also is not favored by Sands. Obviously, there's always been some back and forth between them. Remember
Correct.
that Sands was part of the Dissident 7.
Right.
Not the Dissident 8, but the Dissident 7, Loretta Butler's group. And so there's been acrimony between Sands and
No,
Minnis.
Sands wasn't
for
in
a while.
Parliament.
No, he wasn't.
Right.
But he was supporting.
But he supported Butler Turner. He was
Exactly.
deputy leader when they went to the
Exactly.
convention. Yeah.
He's like second in the motion kind of thing at convention. So the point here is Sands is and Minnis have had actually quite a long history of acrimony, and I think it's being played out right now in front of us as of what happened yesterday.
Yeah, but the Free National Movement needs persons like Dwayne Sands. The and I'll venture to say that the Free National Movement needs persons like Reese Chipman, like Frederick McAlpine. We need these kind of adjutants to ensure that we continue to be able to fight for democracy and to be able to see a more richer, vibrant democracy in our House of Assembly. I believe that we need that kind of a pushback from leadership. And it only makes you sharper, it only makes you stronger, and it makes you pull those close people together. And this kind of a relationship, even after he was, what all that happened, for him to still get a nomination, for him to win the seat, for him to be in this position, to be able to resign from Parliament and still get a nomination again, the Free National Movement must recognize that they need him in this particular capacity. He's articulate, he's insightful, he has good relationships, he understands exactly what's happening, and they need to be able to have this kind of representation at the forefront. I just believe that. And despite the fact that we
it
go
was
in the
telling
front-
that Sands was nominated, and there were others who were either vocal or privately opposed Minnis and didn't get their nomination. But the argument is that there's a key part of the FNM, the
I feel the same way
financials.
about Obi Wilscombe. I can't get no amen. I feel the same way about Obi
I don't
Wilscombe.
understand that one to this day.
I do not understand it because I feel as though in the event that the PLP wins, and oh my God, this is going to be an extended version, but we got to talk about this because I got my guys. I don't know when I can get them again. In the event that the PLP wins in the next general election, Philip Brave Davis have more than COVID-19 to deal with on day one. You got to deal with Obi Wilscombe. You
I don't
gotta
think
deal
Obi
with Alfie
Wilscombe is going to even smell what the next cabinet looks like. There's no way. that
Absolutely
Brad Davis
impossible,
puts him
Juan
in
McCartney.
cabinet. And Brad Davis didn't want him nominated.
Impossible,
And
Juan
he caved
McCartney.
to pressure from
Juan is my boy, but he
big
wrong on
names
this.
in the FNM.
He wrong.
They don't trust each other.
Obi already
Right?
calling his people
They
in the
don't
States.
particularly
He
like
got
each
Pipe
other.
Rally ready now.
I see no position for him in the cabinet.
Obi will be the Minister of Tourism
He
and
will-
the
I
PLP
promise
government if
you,
the
he will. I
PLP
promise you.
wins in the next general election.
I promise you.
I
he
see
will
him being
not.
sidelined as well. I don't think he
Why
has
will
any.
he do this?
I promise you, he will not.
Okay, let's do this.
Be the Minister
It's
of
not only
Tourism
Obi. It's not only Obi. It's not only Obi.
if the PLP wins.
Obi Wilscombe, Alfred Sayers.
Yeah, Alfred Sayers. you
Alfred
do.
Sayers is getting a cabinet spot.
Of course.
Yeah.
Who else? Glennis Hannah Martin. These are all vying for leadership positions within the PLP. I don't know what Brave has to do to ensure that he keeps them at bay. Even Fred Mitchell, at some point, had aspirations and desire to be able to move to the pinnacle of the PLP.
No, Mitchell's tied to Brave Davis at this point.
Now he's tied now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's tied now.
Inextricably tied.
So my point to you is that there were fractions who had a desire to be able to come for the top throne. Perry Christie was able to kind of beat them off, in Minnis's words, to kind of beat them off over the years. But the truth is that now Perry Christie is gone. The gates are wide open. They've released the Kraken, and we're going to see nothing but... Now, the PLP has a way of being able to keep their business inside, in-house.
Yeah, they do. They handle.
But they can have
factions
real
better
issues.
than the FNM.
Yeah. But the PLP doesn't have these warring factions.
They don't have the divisive factions like the FNM.
Divisive factions like the FNM. So you have the Ingramites and the Cecilites who are competing for control of the FNM, and that's why you see a lot of the stuff going on that you've seen going on in the past few years. That's why Ingram's kind of distant, because they've isolated his people. He believes unfairly so within the FNM. The PLP doesn't have that problem. The PLP, they fight, they go to war, and then they come back together as one because they want to win as the PLP.
I will also say one of the issues that actually both parties are going to face is you have some old guard party members,
Right.
like Obi,
Right.
but Obi's not the only one. Alfred's up there in age. Obviously, Glennis Hannah Martin, and the PLP was initially campaigning on.
I think we could kind of
Having a
separate
younger
Alfred,
face.
though.
No,
Alfred has come out with a significant plan that actually showed innovation, creativity, and an idea for a way forward for the future.
I would
Remember
go
we
even
talked
further
about it
than that.
before?
Howard, I
I
would
don't know
go
whether
even
or not we
further
could
than
call
that.
him,
Alfred is the most progressive
He's really progressive.
Liberal Party person running in this election.
Yes.
When you look at his
So
ideas,
I don't want to kind of chalk him up and say
no.
he's an old guy.
okay, he's not an old guy, but he's been around for a while. And when you look at his age, he is up there. But what I'm trying to say is the optics is the PLP, if elected, is going to have to grapple with the fact that you also have younger persons coming into the party with a lot of good ideas.
Right.
And how do you placate their desires or their demands for cabinet positions and board appointments?
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is, you don't want to fill your cabinet with vacuous people who don't really have anything to offer just because they're popular. You really want competent, capable people who can do the job. That's the only way
Has
this
their
is going to work.
expertise been that sort of a kind of a social reference to say that I'm competent and capable, I've been here before, give me another opportunity. If you want to be able to get to work on day one, these are the people that you need to be. And that's what the PLP is saying. The PLP is saying that we'll be ready on day one, September 17th. If there is a spike in COVID, if there's anything, we'll be ready on day one. You can't do that with people that are fumbling in the dark. You have to do that with competent, capable people. We have to get back on track with from a tourism standpoint. We have to get back on track with our relationships internationally. We have to get back on track so we can see the country moving again. And while you want to be able to have this kind of a fresh new face in cabinet, you really got to go with the experience.
I mean, I do feel you do go with experience, but also it doesn't take experience in government to be a good cabinet minister. It depends on your management style, your work ethic, your leadership style. The permanent secretary runs the ministry anyway.
Yeah.
You understand? So it's just really trying to see how best you can facilitate the movement of everything that's going on. So I don't think experience is the only thing that matters. Why are we talking about the FNM though? Like like the FNM and go might not win, or
No, I believe that. Listen,
you say we got to get
I've
back on
already
track. So
said-
how are we gonna get back on track?
I've
back on
already
track.
said that I really
same
believe that
people.
if the FNM wins, they're going to win 22 seats. I really do believe that. I've already identified some seats.
That would be
I believe that 22 seats to the PLP, 17 seats in the event that they win. If the PLP wins, I feel the same thing. It's going to be 22 seats for the PLP to the FNM, 17 seats. I think it's going to go either way, 22-17. It's not going to be that far off. It's going to be shaved here and there. There's a lot of persons that have great aspirations to be able to do these things. And I believe that in the event that minister gets back in, they're going to have to make some serious shuffling. There's the same persons. There's some people, some cabinet ministers, I feel, that just won't get back into the House of Assembly. Now, we ain't gonna, I don't want to offend nobody to say I don't see you winning. That ain't what I want to do. But in the event that the Prime Minister gets back in there and he has to be able to form the new government, he has to find some competent persons. And I've been looking far and wide from these new candidates that he's presented to us. And I've said to myself, okay, where would their expertise lie? How can we use these particular persons outside of just being a fresh face? Who are these people and what can they offer to the growth and development of the country?
But let me ask you this. If the FNM wins, then that means that the electorate, the majority of the electorate, has confidence in what the Prime Minister has been doing. Why would he change anything?
He has to, because he's not going to have this whole team with him.
Who's not going to be the Brenzel role?
I just tell this man, I
That's
get
it.
it.
He's not running. He's not running.
He's not running at all.
Or Mark
Right.
Humes.
All right.
Yeah. he's
Actually,
not
Mark Humes was
just
in the
so
cabinet.
that you know, 29 of the 39 candidates in the FNIM are incumbents, meaning returning. So they only axed essentially what amounted to 10 from running this time. Now, having said that, two things. Experience is great, but you also have to match that with enthusiasm. And I want to throw one last cent in there. Do you know that Lyndon Oscar Pinland became Prime Minister at 37?
Yeah.
So, I mean, age is great, but sometimes people who are younger have good ideas. And our millennials and Z generation, they're people who are more tech savvy. They're more able to market themselves on social media. And so I'm looking for some of if the FNM wins, I'm looking for them to really focus on bringing in some really intelligent and people that are excellent communicators into the fray. I'm looking at someone like what's her name from Seabreeze?
Maxine Seymour.
Seymour, right. Master's degree in communications. Looking at Cartwright. Another person who's obviously shown in his short term that he can do things. So
The
it'll be
FNM has
interesting to
made
see what the FNM do with those
the
people.
FNM has made commitment from 2017 that they would incorporate young people. They, when Carl Common ran in his capacity and won as chairman for the Free National Movement, his inaugural speech and being able to thank the person who supported him was to be able to identify the fact that he was going to bring young persons in, that they're going to be able to take care of the women. We're going to take care of women. We're going to bring women in to this particular perspective. We're going to be able to utilize technology, so forth and so on. It's been a little bit lackluster in those areas. And whilst the party has this kind of a desire, they continue to be able to lean on their traditional voters. These voters, they're kind of fading away. When I say fading away, I'm not talking about death. I'm talking about their enthusiasm for being able to support the party. What have you done to kind of invigorate, to kind of rally up the troops as it relates to the young persons? Nothing much. Nothing much. And especially when the PLP comes back and say, hey, listen, you've been disenfranchised by this snap election. It's a little bit hard. And I want to know what the Free National Movement would do to specifically speak to this demographic that you speak of, this articulate young demographic that says we can be able to do these particular things, this articulate young demographic that wants a part of it, that wants to be a part of leadership, that's not been given an opportunity simply because these old fellas say, well, young boy, it ain't your time right now. And we've seen that time and time again. I don't believe anything will change.
Maybe, maybe not. I mean, it depends, The FNM is, I find this, we're doing this thing now where we're starting to get squirrely, right? So we're taking taxpayer dollars to find homes for people between 18 and 45 who never owned a home before. To have 10,000 square foot lots. I'm completely against it. The PLP is talking about putting people only
Prospect Ridge.
Yeah, Prospect Ridge. Only those 16 to 25. Mind you, go get your property if you're getting a good deal. If you get your property, I just don't like the taxpayer dollars are being used to benefit that specific group to the exclusion of others. But the PLP is talking about people 16 to 25. They're going to subsidize their jobs. What about people over 25? What about people over 45 who still need to work? What about people over 50 who still need to work? See, we talk about young people a lot, right? And I consider myself young. I'm 45 years old. We talk about young people a lot, but everyone just doesn't fade away and get set and be good for life after they hit 40, 45.
Our society's not set up that way.
I don't think, I don't like, we keep talking about young, and I know why they do it. It's because it's the largest voting demographic, 18 to 54. But we got to consider a society for everybody where there's not just poor people and there's not just young people. So I think when they start speaking universally to the Commonwealth of all Bahamians, it'll be much better. But as far as what they're going to do for young people, I'm not sure. But young people are only looking at the world through their eyes, but there's more involved in them in this.
you know, the F&M, I looked at their manifesto, and they have some interesting ideas, but none of the things that they have in their manifesto strike me as really new or novel. They are mentioning access to land, but we've seen Crown land has always been an issue. And so far, from what we've seen, there hasn't been much access to that land. They talk about creating a sovereign wealth fund now. This is something that people have been clamoring about for decades. But how do you actually go about establishing that sovereign wealth fund?
Right.
You know, so that the nuts and bolts of the dream that they're presenting haven't been fully explained to the electorate. So when I think about it, this election is really still about personalities rather than policies. You know,
Yeah, I
and
think
that's
it's
really
about
what we
That
have.
is heavy. That is heavy. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to actually stop it there. This has been an absolutely invigorating conversation. I really wish these guys would give me another opportunity to do this again before the next general election. If we can kind of be able to sit down here. I don't know if you all could commit to that. I know you're busy. I know all of us are busy. But if you can be able to do that, I think this would be great. If we can go live and do this, I'd love to be able to do that with you guys. You're very articulate. You're very good. And we could be able to do that. But you know, I'm always here. I know Dr. Chris Carey got to do all kinds of things. He's very busy. Talk to me.
Always busy, but for you, I'll make the time.
You was a good, decent man. My God, right? I'm excited about that, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, this is another Patio Politics. Make sure that you like and share. You're going to see some stuff coming out. If you want to be a part of that, you can give me a call, 827-0111, 827-0111. If you want your stuff to go out there, Howard, make sure you do my candidate. You want to do all those particular things. We want to highlight independent or individual candidates, not independent, individual candidates from various constituencies who want to kind of engage us. We want to do some stuff like that. You'll see some stuff. We've just recently done one yesterday. We'll kind of release that and make some things happen. I thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure that you like and share. This is going to be the extended version. Extended version. Juan said we can talk about it now. That's his fault. Extended version, right? This is Patio Politics, guys. Thank you so very kindly. We'll see you again next time.